Welcome one and all. Step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history. Hey guys, welcome back to your next moment in gaming history. What I have for you today is the origins of another game type, the humble RPG. No, I'm not talking about Dungeons & Dragons, I'm talking about the first video game RPG. Most of us think this genre has its origins in Japan, and many of us had our first experience with either Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. Some of you might be thinking, well, didn't we already cover this with Rogue? It still counts as an RPG, and honestly, I was thinking that myself, but I think I may have found something that predates it by just a little bit. So, if you're a fan of RPGs, sit down and hang out a while as we talk about the very first RPG. The Temple of Apshai was released in 1979, nearly a year before Rogue. This game was developed and published by Automated Simulations, who would later go by a name you may know better, Epyx. This game was released for the TRS-80 and the Commodore PET and developed by Jen Connolly, who was the founder of Automated Simulations / Epyx Software. Connolly was an avid D&D player and dungeon master himself, who was really enamored with the idea of bringing a similar experience to video games. So it was he began to design his game, where the player assumes the role of an adventurer who explores the mysterious Temple of Apshai. The game is essentially a dungeon crawler with the player investigating room after room, looking for more powerful weapons and armor while dealing with the dungeon's denizens, which is pretty standard fare for, well, games that would come after this one. One of the most interesting things about this game is that it consisted of more than one program. That's right, it came with not one program, but two. One was known as the Innkeeper, and the other known as the Dungeon Master. The Innkeeper program was the first one that you bring up that gives you the choice to either make a new character or input an existing one. You see, Connolly set up a system that you could make characters outside the application and actually import them based off D&D rules. It does this based off the 6 base values from D&D. This was used in two ways. The first is the initial input, and the other for the earliest versions of the game, which had no save feature. The player would be tasked with writing down all the values to be re-input the next time they booted up the game. This is also where the shopkeeper would be, so that would allow you to buy gear before you go into one of the 4 dungeons, which is where the Dungeon Master application took over, loading up the selected dungeon. The main gameplay consisted mostly of exploring and collecting loot, and along with dispatching monsters. Didn't really have any other goal with this, which was pretty common for games at the time, and Rogue and many other games would follow a similar beginning style. It was notable for being one of the very first graphical RPGs, and as for games of the era goes, it sold rather well, selling 20,000 copies by 1981, and in June of 1982 it had sold 30,000 copies. It did so well it would eventually get a remaster in 1983 with a more graphically updated style, staying on the top of the sales charts for the Commodore 64 and the VIC-20, going on to sell around 400,000 copies by 1986. It was so successful it spanned 10 titles, even add-ons for the original Temple of Apshai, Upper Regions of Apshai, and Curse of Ra. As for influence, this is the, if not one of, the earliest RPG games done for a computer. Based heavily on D&D to appeal to the hardcore audience, the game found success and opened up people's eyes to the possibility of deeper game experiences. This would go on to lead to games like Rogue coming out, Ultima, Wizardry, and many more. In that respect, it's fair to say that the relevance of this game cannot be overspoken. Final Fantasy, Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger, even Mass Effect owe a lot to this popular title that now is almost totally forgotten. However, what do you guys think of this one? Do you think this is a cool moment in video game history? Did any of you ever actually play this one? Have any of you ever heard of this before now? Let me know in the comments. However, for now, I'd like to thank you once again for watching and getting this far in the video. It really does mean a lot to me. If you could do me one more favor, please hit the like button. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. It really does help my channel out. For now though, thank you very much for stopping by, and until next time, happy gaming.